Welcome back. Healthcare professionals across the country recognize May 6th through May 12th as National Nurse Week. Highlighting the work of New York nurses, the New York State Nurses Association aims to further honor and support these healthcare professionals. Director at large for NYSNA and nurse Sonia Lawrence now joins me to discuss. Sonia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, can you talk a little bit about, the meaning behind National Nurse Week and, just why that's so important?
National Nurses Week is a week designated by American Nurses Association to celebrate nurses, our accomplishments, how we care for our patients and our community. It's a way of honoring the things we do.
Now, how does it feel as a nurse, which I think is so amazing to kind of have these two roles? As a nurse, how does it feel to know that people are actually like, honoring you and recognizing the work that you do?
It feels amazing because nursing is more than just a job. It's a career. It's a commitment to taking care of people and providing care that especially our most vulnerable patients deserve.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about the organization, the New York State Nurses Association? Just tell us about the organization just in general, and then how do you acknowledge this week?
That's a great question. The New York State Nurses Association is a union of 42,000 registered nurses throughout New York State. We are affiliated with NNU, National Nurses United, which give us a voice of 22,000 in county. We are a union that provides care to all New Yorkers. We provide care to the underserved communities. We provide and bargain for safe nursing conditions. We provide care for the underserved communities and safe staffing for the people we care for.
Now, how does it, can you just talk about the importance of having, I know for a lot of associations, just having that sense of community means a lot to people. Can you talk about, for a field like nursing where, it is extremely hands-on, it's a lot of, just a lot that goes into it. How does it feel to have that support system filled with people who are also nurses?
It's amazing. We learn from each other and we support each other because nursing is a very demanding profession. We give care to all people, regardless of their color, their race, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of insured or underinsured. We simply take care of every patient.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the pandemic because I understand the pandemic really changed a lot, just for the field of healthcare and especially for like nurses and doctors. There was this effort to make sure that we viewed nurses in a better light than we did before. I think sometimes a lot of people took for granted the amount of work that nurses put in. Can you just talk about how it felt to be recognized from the public on such a huge scale during the pandemic?
Our public health nurses were there during the COVID-19 pandemic, and which is still here. We provide care to all New Yorkers. The COVID-19 pandemic was an incredible experience. We lost nurses, we lost patients, we lost loved ones. But the incredible thing about nurses is that we are resilient. We get right back up every day and we go out there and we take care of those vulnerable patients.
Now, despite the appreciation, because I know that we call them healthcare heroes, and so much was said about nurses, and I definitely saw from an outsider, perspective, I definitely saw this effort to make sure that nurses felt appreciated. Nurses are still facing a lot of obstacles in their field. Can you just overall just tell us some of the challenges that nurses are currently facing right now?
Yes, I can. Short staffing, high turnover, low pay, especially for our public sector nurses, are a real challenge. We do not have the resources and we do not have the manpower, meaning nurses, to provide the care that the most vulnerable of our patients needs.
And can you talk about how was that heightened since the pandemic, or has things, because there's been this view on nurses, has it gotten better since the pandemic or has it gotten worse?
No, staffing has gotten worse since the pandemic. We have high turnover of nurses, especially in our public health system. The nurses come, but they do not stay. And the reason for that is because our pay is so low. The city pays millions of dollars to hire nurses, travel nurses, and nurses that are temporary to a real severe problem. And because of that, we have high challenges. We have our younger nurses, most inexperienced nurses at the bedside, now taking charge of patients. Our experienced nurses have gone away from the bedside and have left the public facilities. And the reason for that is that they just cannot take it anymore. They're burnt out and they're overworked and underpaid, severely underpaid. The private sector nurses make at least $20,000 more than our public sector nurses. And so it is more lucrative to go and work in a private institution than it is to work in the public hospital. This city needs to level the playing field and increase our pay so we can provide New Yorkers with the care they deserve.
Now, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, especially the part about burnout, because I know, like, just in the city, there's so many people, and while you're dealing with, especially in areas where so many people have so many health problems, like specifically the Bronx, we have, higher rates of a lot of health issues. Can you just talk about that burnout and, what that experience is like for a nurse? Because I think a lot of people, they'll say like, oh, well, that's, just part of the job, but it is very demanding, and I'm sure that it does come with a lot of just a lot of negative, I don't want to say feedback, but it just has a lot that comes with it. So can you just talk a little bit more about that experience, dealing with burnout?
We take care of New York's most vulnerable patients, and we need experienced nurses at the bedside to do this. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we were so short-staffed that before all the help came in, we were taking care of a large amount of patients, way above our fair share that we could safely provide care for. It is difficult for nurses when we do not have enough staffers, but it is more difficult for our patients because they suffer more and they wait longer for care. And this is having a negative impact on patient outcome and nurse burnout. Sometimes we don't get time to go to lunch. We do not get time to eat because we're too busy providing care. And right now, patients are getting so frustrated that violence against nurses and and frontline staff, the numbers have gone up.
Now, I understand that because of everything that you're experiencing, or that nurses are experiencing just in general, there has been a 3-day strike held by nurses at Mount Sinai and Montefiore. Can you just talk a little bit more about that strike?
I think that was an incredible strike by our private sector nurses. They were sick and tired of working with short staffing. They just were fed up and had enough. So they took to the streets and they striked for 3 days and they won. Now it's time for our public sector nurses to have fair pay and, and appreciate and get to appreciate some of the values that our private sector nurses have earned.
Now, can you talk about NYSNA's efforts towards fair contracts for nurses?
Public sector nurses cannot strike. It is illegal for us to strike. So we have been mobilizing and we have been signing petitions. We have been doing rallies and speaking out to the press.
And can you just explain the difference between a public sector nurse versus a private?
The private sector nurses are the nurses like the ones that went on strike, the Montefiores, the Mount Sinai, and so on. The public sector nurses, of which I am a part of, are the nurses that treat all New Yorkers. We are 11 11 acute care hospitals throughout New York. We also have the mayoral nurses who treat our firefighters and our police officers, that keep them healthy so that they can remain on the job. And we are the hospitals that is the closest thing to universal health care that the city has ever seen. So we are essential to
Now,
all New Yorkers.
now, can you talk about the We Love New York Nurses pledge?
We Love New York Nurses Pledge is a way that our public can support us during our fight for a fair contract. They can stand with us by going to the welovenewyorknurses.org and sign up.
Now, I think it's just amazing, everything that you're telling me. I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to speak about it because I think a lot of people just don't know what the reality is. How can nurses become a member of the NYSNA just organization so that they can feel the support from other people who know what they're going through?
That's easy. Work for a unionized hospital or work for one of our amazing public health hospitals or one of our mayoral agencies.
And can you talk a little bit about some of the events or just the organizations that you host for this organization?
Well, this Nurses Week, we are planning to boycott H&H celebration or the city's celebration of nurses because we need a fair and equitable contract. We are paid so low that we do not have enough nurses to take care of patients and community. So on May 10th, we'll be having a rally in Foley Square. It was supposed to be at Union Square, but circumstances, we had to change to Foley Square. So we're inviting you and we're inviting the public out to come out and support us as we fight for a fair contract and safety for our patients.
Well, Sonia, thank you so much for joining us to have this conversation.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
To see what you can do to support our nurses, please go to the NYSNA website at www.nysna.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.